Hello and welcome to the DSR Daily. I'm David Rothkopf, and I'm joined this morning by Minna Stein. Minna, we've been ditched by Riley.
I know. Sad he's not joining us for our last recording before the break.
Well, he went off to Ohio, and apparently he didn't have a particularly smooth transit, and it took late into the night. So he was unable to join us. So we'll have to do this ourselves. You tell me some stories, and I will offer my bleary-eyed reaction. No, everybody, I'm here for you. I will offer you crystal clear insights. Watch. Listen. Go ahead, Minna.
All right. The U.S. House of Representatives voted 174 to 235 to reject a funding bill aimed at avoiding a government shutdown, falling short of the two-thirds majority required for fast-tracking passage. The bill, supported by Trump and Republican leaders, faced strong opposition from Democrats who criticized it as insufficient in reducing federal spending. With less than 30 hours before the shutdown deadline, Speaker Mike Johnson offered no clear next steps, while Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called for a return to bipartisan negotiations. The bill would have funded the government through March 14th and extended the debt limit, but lacked key provisions that had angered Trump and conservatives.
On the one hand, you take over the government early. That seems kind of cool. You have your two presidents, Trump and Musk. That seems kind of cool. You think everything's going just great. But here's the problem. If you suck at governing, it shows. And Musk doesn't understand the first thing about how Washington works. And he doesn't realize that if just a handful of Republicans don't want to go along with his effort to jam things down their throat, then it's not going to happen. And that's going to be the story of the Congress that's coming in. And something's gonna break sooner or later. Meanwhile, millions of federal employees are sitting there on the Friday before Christmas going, am I going to get paid next week? Are Social Security checks going to go out next week? American military families are going, we're going to have no money for Christmas? And it's all on 100% on Musk and Trump. This is the start. This is the preview of coming attractions, folks. And that's a movie I'd like to avoid. But I think it's one we're going to have to live through. So buckle up.
U.S. deportations are at the highest level since 2014. ICE deported 271,484 immigrants, the highest number in a decade, mostly focusing on recent border crossers due to increased migration from Latin America. While President Biden initially sought to reduce deportations, his administration shifted to extend enforcement as border crossings surged, with a focus on criminal immigrants and national security threats. President-elect Donald Trump has promised to launch a large-scale deportation campaign targeting all undocumented individuals, including those with pending deportation orders. ICE's staffing levels remain relatively unchanged, and deportations continue to face challenges due to diplomatic and legal barriers, particularly from countries like Venezuela.
Look, Trump and the Republicans hit upon something that most Americans agree with them on to some degree, which is illegal immigrants shouldn't be here. You shouldn't enforce the law. When Minna said that this is the highest number in 10 years, do the math. The previous highest numbers were under President Obama, who deported in several years over 400,000 people. And that's likely where we're going to go back, because Trump's plan to deport 10 to 11 million people is just simply not workable. Minna said something about ICE staffing levels. There are 1,000 people within ICE whose job it is to enforce this stuff. How do 1,000 people deport 10 million people? They can't. You think that the National Guard is going to do this? You think they're going to know who to identify, how to identify them, how to get them? You think there's a place to put them? You think there are lawyers that are not going to object to this? Where are we going to send all these people? How are we going to send them there? What are we going to do to pay for it? We can't even get the government to operate right now to give disaster relief to people whose homes were destroyed. You think they're going to come up with several $100 billion to do this mass deportation plan? They're not. They're going to try. They're going to do some ugly things. It's going to be a mess, but it's an unachievable goal.
Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed readiness to compromise over Ukraine in potential talks with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, emphasizing Russia's strength and willingness for negotiations without preconditions. Putin claimed that the war was progressing in Russia's favor and dismissed the idea of a temporary ceasefire, instead seeking a long-lasting peaceful deal with Ukraine, which could only be signed by what Moscow considered legitimate authorities. He rejected any major territorial concessions and insisted that Ukraine abandon its NATO ambitions. Meanwhile, Putin touted Russia's military advances, including their hypersonic missile, and defended Russia's role in the Middle East, while Ukrainian President Zelensky questioned Putin's sanity in response to his threats.
Yeah, let's break down the story as Minna told it. Vladimir Putin is offering himself up as a reasonable negotiating partner. That was the first half of her statement. The second half of her statement is that he's a completely unreasonable negotiating partner, that he is actually not willing to move on any point, that he doesn't consider the current government of Ukraine legitimate, that therefore he wants to be the one who determines what a legitimate government is in Ukraine, that he doesn't want Ukraine to have the free right to determine with whom it associates itself as a country like NATO. Therefore, he wants to be the one who determines the foreign policy of Ukraine, that he wants to keep all the land that he has stolen from Ukraine, and that, he will be happy to negotiate, provided it's entirely on his terms. It won't be. Trump's going to try to pressure this into happening, and he will discover that not only are the Ukrainians an obstacle and the Europeans an obstacle, but that Putin is an obstacle, because he is not going to give on anything of the critical points. There's probably a deal to be had. Probably the Russians keep some of the land that they've got, and Ukraine has a path to affiliation with the EU and some kind of security guarantees. That's probably where you end up, provided that there is also a side package for rebuilding of Ukraine. But, the Russians will oppose the security guarantees. The Ukrainians will oppose giving up all the stolen land. And the world is not going to come up with enough money to rebuild Ukraine. So we're a long way from resolving this. This wound will fester. And Trump's ability to solve it in 24 hours, so we'll see the previous two stories. Not going to happen.
A Georgia Court of Appeals has disqualified Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis from prosecuting the case against President-elect Donald Trump and his alleged co-conspirators from their attempt to overturn the 2020 election. The court cited significant appearance of impropriety due to Willis's romantic relationship with Nathan Wade, the special prosecutor she hired for the case, though it did not dismiss the case entirely. Willis plans to appeal the decision to the Georgia Supreme Court, and if further appeals are exhausted, a new special prosecutor would be appointed to continue the case. This ruling marks a significant setback for the prosecution and raises questions about the case's future, especially as Trump and his allies continue to challenge it on several legal fronts.
A few reactions to this. Let me just give you three right off the top of my head. One, Trump's strategy for avoiding accountability has been pretty good. He's just thrown a lot of lawyers at things, thrown a lot of money at things, taken any argument that he possibly could, gone to judges that he felt would be more sympathetic to him. And with the exception of the cases in New York, he's been very successful in sidetracking the federal cases, sidetracking this big Georgia case. And so there's no accountability. Trump is above the law. Stop talking about it. Stop complaining about it. It's wrong, but it's where we are as a country. If you have billions of dollars, you have a different set of legal responsibilities than anybody else. Just look at Elon Musk. He's apparently an illegal immigrant. He apparently abuses drugs. He apparently has done all sorts of nefarious things. You know, all you need is a lot of lawyers and a lot of money, and then you have all the time that you need, and you can find a way to just get rid of this. The second thing that I would observe is that Fani Willis was an idiot, and Fani Willis screwed this case up. And Fani Willis will go down in history as somebody who made profound ethical misjudgments at a critical moment in U.S. history with a critical case in U.S. history. She dropped the ball. She may be a good person in other respects. She may have done good work for Fulton County as its district attorney, but she blew this. It's on her. Finally, it can't help but be galling to people who are actually paying attention that the ethical standard to which Fani Willis is being held um, is completely different from the ethical standards that say, I don't know, the Supreme Court is being held. In fact, there was earlier this week a case where a judge was sanctioned by the court for saying nasty things about Justice Alito, whereas Justice Alito is not sanctioned or subject to sanction for all of his dealings with billionaires and people who have cases before the court and so forth, all of his conflicts of interest, or Thomas's conflicts of interest, or the conflicts of interest of others among the conservatives on the court. So the ethical crisis within our judiciary is going to come back to haunt us again and again and again over the next few years, until finally there is a majority in the Congress that passes laws that requires these people to be held to the same standards that most judges are being held for. But that's a way off. So that is also going to be a reason that our judiciary will be dysfunctional for the foreseeable future.
Elon Musk, set to join President-elect Donald Trump's administration, endorsed Germany's far-right Alternative for Germany, also known as AfD party, calling it, quote, the country's savior on his social media platform X. The AfD, which is polling second, could disrupt Germany's political landscape, though mainstream parties reject cooperating with it. Musk has previously supported anti-immigration groups in Europe, including in Italy and the UK, and is in talks with the Reform Party in the UK about financial backing. The German government acknowledges Musk's post, but declined further comment.
Elon Musk is a menace. He thinks he has done some master of the universe thing and for a few $100 million bought the U.S. government. He is on a trajectory to become the most despised man in America and potentially in other places around the world as well. But having said that, he may not care whether he's despised. He's gone from 400 billion to 500 billion. He's made hundreds of billions of dollars since the election simply because of his changed role within our society. And when you have that much money, you can do anything you want in a lot of political systems in the world. I would note that the Australians I guess yesterday, passed a law that capped the amount of money that people can put into political campaigns so that no billionaire can come in and buy a candidate and buy an outcome. Of course, we can't do that because Citizens United says that people should be able to give as much money as they want because that's free speech. It was one of the most ill-considered, corrupting decisions in American political history. In any event, Musk's support for the far right, neo-Nazi or on their way to being neo-Nazi right-wing group in Germany is deeply disturbing, but it says loud and clear who this guy is. It's as loud and clear. And as our friend Simon Rosenberg said this morning on Blue Sky, every reporter ought to go up to every Republican on the Hill and say, "Oh, do you support the neo Nazis in Germany? Do you support? Are you willing to back your party's effective leader on this point?" And see what happens. Another um, chilling story with which to go into the weekend. But that's what we're at. We're going into the weekend, so that's not a bad thing, is it, Minna?
What an uplifting roundup of stories for the holidays.
Well, don't blame me. You picked these stories.
I know.
But yeah,
I
go
blame
on.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, well, we will all be blaming Elon Musk. So there will be a lot of Elon Musk dartboards in America this Christmas, particularly if the Republicans can't figure this out. My guess, short-term solution, continuing resolution, looks a little bit like the original continuing resolution, gets resolved by Monday. Nobody wants a government shutdown on Christmas. Nobody. It's not in anybody's interest. But we shall see, because these guys are fuck ups, and they can fuck up in ways that we can't even imagine fucking up. They're geniuses at fucking up, and that's what'll happen. If something happens over the next week that's a big deal story, we will be here. We will cover it. We will come back to you. But our current plan is to take the week, take a deep breath. Doing 15, 16, 17 podcasts a week is challenging, and give you the best of the past year for you to explore and listen to, because there have been a lot of great podcasts with a lot of great experts on a lot of subjects that are evergreen, a lot of subjects that are just not tied down to a period, a moment in time. So hopefully you'll join us for that. Hopefully you'll have great holidays, whether you're celebrating Christmas or Hanukkah. My family used to do, we'd celebrate them all. Or just celebrating the week and celebrating your family and having a good time. And we'll be back the day after New Year's, and we hope you will be with us then. And as I say, if something big happens, we'll break into our planned break and come to you with new podcasts, emergency podcasts. Until then, happy holidays, everybody. Happy holidays, Minna.
Thank you. Happy holidays to you too.
Thank you very much. And see you on the other side of, 2025. See you in 2025, everybody.
See you in the future.
See you in the future. Bye-bye. Thank you.